Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Podcast description. Check that out. Subscribe. Do it now.
Go get it. All right. The Niners draft position. What have they done to themselves? As of the recording of this, and things could change around by the end of this Sunday, and then you got next week, week 17. But right now, John, they're 6-9. They're drafting 14th. Going into the game, if they had lost, right, they'd be 5-10, so they'd probably be in the 10, 11. Well, they'd technically be 9 before all these other games are done, but probably with some tiebreakers, maybe they'd be 10, 11. So what have they really – they've made it less painful to trade the first-round pick for Matt Stafford. I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, it is a lot easier to trade a pick that's 13, as the Colts did last year, than it is to trade pick 7. There's no disputing that. You know, there are a lot of teams jumbled right between that 5 and 6 win kind of slot. Even 7. I guess Niners technically could still win next week. But, like, to me, that is going to be a conversation that's going to until Matt Stafford or even the GM or new head coach come out and say, we're not under our dead bodies, are we trading this guy? Like, that is going to be a conversation. And I fully expect, again, educated guess, like, demand a trade in a non-Kyrie, like, it's me or I'm out, but just like, it's over. Matt Stafford's people have told the Lions, like, they really want to, you know, in a respectful way. You see what I'm saying about this 4K video? You see that, like, kind of look?
Yeah. I'm just relaying what I was told about it.
No, I know. Again, because I don't have 4K or 10K TV or 8K or whatever.
And it still looks incredible.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I just think what I said earlier, the Jets are a great example. And really the Jets could have 4 wins, right? They easily could have won the Raider game, and they had a Monday night game against the Patriots where they were winning late in the game. Like the Jets could be drafting 7th right now. The NFL and the Niners, like, you're just trying to win. Like, whenever a team loses, the Raiders lost in gut-wrenching fashion. Under their dead body did they want to lose that game? No team, I'd argue, in like NFL history, beside week 17, or that one Polian Colts team that could have gone 16-0 and they had it sewn up by week 15 and they rested everyone and the players were all mad. It just doesn't happen. And I don't even think, because Kyle Shanahan, who's ultimately the decision maker, in a weird way is not thinking about the draft till the season ends. Because I don't think as a coach you can, if you're going to be there long term, you can think about that. And I think it showed really the last 2 weeks. Like, they lost to Washington. Again, they did not try to lose that game. Like, Mullins just sucked. Like, Kyle probably hasn't watched. There's a chance, honestly, Guy, that just on Saturdays when they actually lived in the Bay Area and he was able to go home, he might have just hung out with, like, his daughters, and he's not really watching as much college football. Like, he might not watch 0 college football during the season, besides maybe occasionally on the back of his office, like on a Friday night game or something, or Thursday night game. But if you ask him, like, could you give a scouting report on Zach Wilson? Beside maybe what John Lynch or Adam Peters have told him about the guy, he probably hasn't watched any tape, or maybe seen just some casual plays on, like, line, seen some highlights. Like, I don't even think you think about it like that, because you're just in the football mode as a coach. Also, that's why you have GMs.
He's got to figure, like, the way the draft turned out for them in 2020 was very different than what we would have said, like, if we go back a year, right? Or just go back to the end of the regular season of the 2019 season. Be like, all right, you guys are here's your pick in the late 20s. Good luck. What actually happened? They had a pick in the late 20s, where I guess they would have had the second to last pick, right?
Yeah.
So from the 31st pick to what actually happened, where they picked at 14 and 25, you couldn't have planned for that on December 27th of 2019.
Honestly, you could make the argument. Again, this wouldn't be fun to do most of the time, and we're not going to change. But unless you're talking about Trevor Lawrence, it's all kind of a crapshoot, right? Just in terms of how much it changes, what trades are going to happen, who knows? Guy, Sam Darnold was done. Now it feels like, God, are they going to pick up his 5th-year option? He doesn't look bad. I mean, they might have something. It just, things change. I would say just in sports in general, but with drafts, you see it with NBA. Like, this guy loves playing here. The next day, like, wants a trade. I don't think you can think like that. Again, I'm not going to stop talking like that, but the reality is none of these teams, including the fucking Jets, are really thinking about the draft. The media does. The front office does. I mean, my friends in the NFL that I text with, they do, but the coaches don't, and the players don't. And at the end of the day, I'll always say this, and I remember Howie saying this: we only get 3 times to change our roster. We get the free agency, you get the draft, and you get the big cut downs. And you could argue like waiver claims, like during the season, kinda, but waiver claim is really, you're not claiming starters on the waiver claim, right, in the middle of the season. So like the front office, once the season starts, maybe the trade deadline, and we've seen the Ramseys, those really have happened more the last couple of years, but historically guys like that don't consistently get traded during the season, or even Mac and Jamal like right before the season. To me, that's a little bit of a new trend. The front office has no pull during the season, really, for relative to like baseball and basketball, right? They don't call the plays. They don't. I would say the majority of general managers, honestly, it could be close to like 32, don't control the game day roster. They have no juice during the week.
No, there's not really much, right? I mean, the trade dedeadline doesn't usually. I mean, there's a couple things that happen at the trade deadline.
Maybe you get like a random.
The Niners did the pick for the trade for. Remember, it was like a 7th round swap and trade for Jordan Willis from the Jets.
Yeah, and they traded what's his name, Quan
Alexander.
Yeah, to the Saints, who I think in that game yesterday or Friday tore his Achilles. Not ideal.
So, all right, but the question is just like, what can you do, right? What can you do at 14 that you can't do? Can you do the same things at 14 that you can do at 11? You don't have a 3rd rounder this year, at least at this point. That could change. You have a 2nd. The worse you are, the better the 2nd gets, you know.
I think there's only 2 players at the quarterback position that are a lock to go in the top 5. And that's Lawrence at 1 and probably Zach Wilson. I think everyone else is up for debate, right? So there's no – you might be able to sit there and get a quarterback if you wanted one. You might not, depending on what happens. The other thing with the NFL is free agency comes first. And the Jimmy – like we might have more like clarity before the draft even happens, right?
Right.
You tend to have a pretty good idea of like they're going to draft a quarterback really high or not. And I guess – if they traded their 1st round for Stafford, they're probably not going to use like their 2nd round pick on a quarterback, right? You wouldn't think?
You wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. But I do think you can look and see things like, you know, one of the big storylines now is going to be, are the Jets drafting a non-quarterback at 2? Are they drafting a quarterback? Are they trading back to somebody who wants a quarterback?
Well,
Atlanta.
Well, I think the Jets are a good example of the GM has a really good idea what he's probably thinking, right, with every game that goes by. But the word we always hear is alignment. Like, what if the coach goes, I really like Sam Darnold? Or what if the coach is vice versa? I don't really like Sam Darnold.
Greg Williams?
Yeah. Whoever they are. Adam Gase.
You know the Jags. By the way.
We're talking about all these teams that don't have a fucking coach or a general manager, most of them, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying there's going to be
that's where I think Kyle would be like, why are everyone's making all these conclusions? Half these teams in the league that are above us don't even fucking know what
I'm just saying
they're doing tomorrow.
To me, it's just about trying to figure out what all the possible paths for all these teams are. And you just have multiple teams that could not draft a quarterback in the top 4 at this point, right?
Well, I guess this is my overall point, though. This is where back to Kyle, where like why he probably doesn't give a shit, because I think he could go like, no one knows.
Well, no, he doesn't give a shit. But that's what I'm saying. It's like that's different than us just looking at what all the possible scenarios are.
Yeah.
And the fact is that the Jets could or could not. The Dolphins, you would say, would not. But
guy, if they would have finished 5-11, they would have been drafting probably between 6 and 8. And drafting at 6, there would have been talk consistently, unless they traded pick 6 for Matt Stafford, which seems a little crazy, about a quarterback there. And that, to me, dramatically changes at 14. I just think now we got options. Doesn't mean they won't trade up because you don't have to go that far, but it just changes the conversation. Because being 5-11 is a lot different than even this year, just 6 and 10. Like it could be the difference of 4 or 5 spots.
I think one fun thing we could do just as the months go along and the draft position changes and the draft evals change and free agency happens is like where's the fourth quarter? How high would you have to be for the fourth quarterback, whoever that is in this draft? At this point, like, what do we think December 27th? What do we think January 27th? Right now, whoever that guy is, if it's Trey Lance, which it kind of feels like he'd be the fourth guy, but whatever. If it's Justin Fields, where is the fourth quarterback getting drafted in this year's draft?
I think there are 4 guys that have a very good chance to go in the top 15. That's the top 1 is Trevor Lawrence.
So we know 1 is gone. So now there's 3 left.
Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance have a very good chance to me go in the top 15. I think all will.
I think the second guy is going to be gone by the 3rd pick. Either the Jets or the Falcons take him, or they trade with someone who will. Because Miami's sitting there at 4, and Miami can trade that pick if they want to somebody who – and Miami has shown they will move back and acquire talent, right?
Yes, the Bengals are not taking one. The Eagles are not taking one.
But the Panthers are at 5. They would.
They would probably take one, yes.
So you could have 3 guys gone in the top 5. But a minimum 2 of them are going to be gone in the top 5, right?
Yes. I think 2 of them are gone before the 3rd pick.
And then you got the 8th pick, which is Detroit, which is if they trade Stafford, then they don't have to use that pick, I guess. But
yeah.
Right. The Giants at 9,
if
Dallas at 10.
If they were to keep Stafford, they might not use that pick on a quarterback.
So you're right. It's possible that Denver at 14, Denver at 12, Minnesota. Again, these teams are going to change. It's possible the 4th guy is going around 14.
Yeah.
But
typically you trade up to get the guys.
I would probably at this point my guess is going to be the 4th guy will be taken by the 12th pick. That'd be my guess.
And remember, the Cardinals to get Rosen, it sounds weird now, but at the time, like to get a quarterback who was the 4th quarterback taken in the draft, 15-10 cost them a 3rd round pick. So when you go from like 14 to like 8, 9, it's not like you're not giving away other ones, right?
Right.
You might be able to give like a next year's 3 or something. You never know.
And part of that is like there might only be 3 teams that really would have been willing to move up for Rosen, right? Who knows how many teams are willing to move up.
We just find a lot of
Lance.
information, especially in 2020. One of these quarterbacks played 1 game this season and has been a 1-year starter. So it's like the NFL did not allow scouts to go into schools this year. So the information is a little weird. Like the information is I'm talking to a defense. And one thing talking to a lot of executives is like, they feel weird about like, I don't want to shoot the coach an email, like a coordinator on a game week. It's already weird for these guys, take their time. It's hard. You're just kind of leaving them alone. Their information where during the season, you can just walk by like, I don't even know a good example. Like, Tony Elliott, the offensive coordinator for the Clemson, and be like, hey, bro, are you going to be in your office in a couple hours? He's like, yeah, stop by in like 15 minutes. And I can get 10 minutes with him. Or BYU to talk with the OC about Zach Wilson. I can't do that now unless I know him personally. And even then, like everything they're going through, it's much harder. It's been very difficult. Like the information right now is just very not great.
And it's probably, even if you're going to have meetings, once it gets better, once you start talking to these guys, I would imagine Zoom, we have a lot of experience with it. It's not the same as sitting in a room with somebody who knows nothing's being recorded, nothing's being watched by anybody else.
Especially if you don't know them personally. Like if I don't know a coordinator and I'm a 2nd-year scout, we can have a pretty good conversation. Like, hey, I'm John.
You can stand out on the practice field, catch him a couple times. You're wearing the hat. He recognizes who you work for.
And he's like, Billy Bob, you're your quality control guy with Philly. We worked, and then you develop a rapport because all these coaches know other coaches, and then boom, you have a good conversation. But you're right. Like, would you feel comfortable if you were a quarterback coach or offensive coordinator, even if it was an NFL scout, just talking? What if they're going to show their GM? And I would be very leery of this shit unless I was best friends with a guy. Hey, so-and-so is a shithead. And somehow it's like, fucking Rap Sheet tweets it out. You're like, oh my God.
The Colts put in one of their packages with all their scout videos.
It ain't worth it, man.